Did you know that M. Night Shyamalan was accused of plagiarizing The Village of an oddly similar 1995 young adult novel? The Village turns 20 years old this week, so here are some things I bet you never knew about it. It's kind of hard to overstate just how much of a hit machine M. Night Shyamalan was at the turn of the century. The Sixth Sense made $673 million off a $40 million budget, Unbreakable made $248 million off a $75 million budget, and Signs made $408 million off a $72 million budget. So for his next trick for Disney's Touchstone Pictures, Shyamalan would make The Village. Like his previous films, it would be a thriller with a twist ending, and it was originally titled The Woods, but it had to switch to The Village because Lucky McKee's 2006 film The Woods was already in production. Like Knight's other films, there was a ton of secrecy around the script, but the screenplay ended up leaking a year prior to the movie's release, and a number of early film review websites wrote up pre-reviews of the movie. This version of the script ended with Ivy climbing the wall and getting help from a truck driver. But as we'll talk about later, Shyamalan ended up changing that. The writer-director wrote the role of Lucius Hunt for Joaquin Phoenix, and Kirsten Dunst was originally attached to star in the lead role, but dropped out to be in Cameron Crowe's Elizabethtown. Jessica Biel and Kate Hudson were once considered for the part, but Shyamalan decided to cast Bryce Dallas Howard without an audition after seeing her in a play. Dunst and Howard would later be in Spider-Man 3 together. Howard and Judy Greer star as sisters in the movie, and they would later play sisters again in Jurassic World. And another weird thing about Judy Greer in this movie is that her character's name is Kitty, which is also her character name in Arrested Development, which was produced and narrated by Bryce Dallas Howard's dad, Ron Howard. Ashton Kutcher was originally cast as Noah, but had to drop out due to scheduling conflicts. Aaron Eckhart, Thomas Jane, and Hayden Christensen were considered for the role at one point, but it ended up going to Adrian Brody. Sigourney Weaver said she suffered nightmares for 2 weeks after reading the script. Shyamalan had originally designed the monsters to look like the rock drawings that we saw in the trailer. They looked kind of like lions walking on their hind feet with these shaggy manes, but when those creatures were made to scale and brought to set, they looked too ridiculous and unbelievable, so they were quickly redesigned and given their iconic red cloaks. The Village was co-produced by Touchstone and Scott Rudin, and was given a reported budget of roughly $70 million. Prior to production, Shyamalan put the cast through a 19th century boot camp to get them used to life back in the day. During this training, Joaquin Phoenix made Bryce Dallas Howard a walking stick with her character named Ivy engraved into it, and because Adrian Brody's character was a bit of a rebel, he intentionally got into trouble in camp by stealing food and wine from the kitchen, and apparently one night he went out camping in the middle of the woods by himself, and they reportedly had to send out a search party for him the next morning. Shyamalan was born in India, but raised in Penn Valley, Pennsylvania, and shot most of his movies in PA. The Village is no exception. The Village set itself was built in a field outside Chadds Ford, Pennsylvania, and it took 11 weeks to construct. More than 300 scenic and construction crew members were hired for the film. And in addition to The Village, a temporary soundstage was built on an adjacent field. And some scenes were also shot in Centerville, Delaware. A Philadelphia Inquirer is seen in the movie, which indicates that the movie is also set in Pennsylvania. The film started shooting in October 2003 and was delayed slightly so they could wait for the leaves to change colors. Production wrapped in mid-December, but Shyamalan ended up doing some reshoots in April and May of 2004, specifically to change the ending of the movie due to the script leaking. The final cut of the movie includes Ivy meeting a park ranger and eventually returning to the Village. Shyamalan himself makes a very brief cameo in the guard shack, and the movie was initially given an R rating for one single sound effect, the noise of the knife stabbing Lucius. They ended up taking the sound out, and it got a PG-13. The Village opened on July 30th, 2004, and debuted at number 1, making $50.7 million domestic. It went on to gross $256 million worldwide. This would be Shyamalan's first flop with critics. Today, 44% of the 222 reviews assessed by Rotten Tomatoes are positive. His previous 3 movies have at least 70% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics seem to really dislike the twist ending, and Roger Ebert put it in his bottom 10 movies for the year. The movie was nominated for 1 Oscar for Best Score, which it lost to Finding Neverland. Simon & Schuster claimed that Knight had plagiarized the movie from Margaret Peterson Haddock's YA novel Running Out of Time, which was also about a 19th century village inside a modern-day park in which the adults were hiding that fact from the children, and women were sent out to get medical supplies. The author threatened to sue over the similarities, but Shyamalan called them meritless, and no lawsuits were ever filed.